Intentional Currency podcast. My name is Yasmin. I'm the founder of the Intentional Currency, and our mission is to help Muslim women take control of their money, build wealth in a way that's pleasing to Allah, and feel confident making financial decisions that serve their families and their communities. In this podcast, we're bringing you real conversations from some incredible women who share our mission. These women are leaders, change makers, and financial literacy advocates from around the world. Together, we'll explore what it means to create wealth that's rooted in faith and designed to have a positive impact. Each guest brings their own journey, their struggles, their wins, whether it's setting up an emergency fund, learning how to invest, or figuring out how to manage finance and family. Our hope is that their stories inspire you, empower you, and remind you that financial empowerment is for every Muslim woman who wants it. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's get into the conversation. Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to the Intentional Currency podcast. I am very excited to have a special guest today, Insiya. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm so excited to be having the most meaningful conversations on this place. I'm very excited.
Quickly, I know you have a very unique background. Can you share just kind of like a brief overview of your background in terms of your career, your business, and how you kind of got into this world of financial literacy?
So I am basically from the field of mental health, and I've been a psychologist for almost 15 years now, and I've been training counselors, and I've been in different capacities in the mental health field. I eventually transitioned in COVID to starting to support Muslim women in their mental health because I realized that there's a gap in terms of how Muslim women identify with mental health and the whole religion angle to it as well, and then the cultural angle to it. And then I started exploring the online coaching space, and it seems to be so vast and abundant in terms of the kind of people that are getting in. And I've always been interested in making a lot of money. And I think, your personal experiences make that journey even more prominent for you. So growing up in my household, I saw that my father was the one who was making the money. And my mother was the one who was trying to manage the money, though my dad managed most of the money. And I felt like the one who brings in a certain level of financial understanding to the system has a lot more say in decisions that influence other people. And so most of the decisions were taken by my father, and my mother was on board. And that was something that felt intimidating to me, to live a life where someone else was taking the decisions. And so I immediately equated that the one who is going to be earning or the one who's going to be making the money is going to be able to be making the decisions. And then, of course, I got married. So my husband comes from a background where both his parents were working. And, it's interesting how husband doesn't see it like that. My husband sees it as a consensus. And he's like, it's obvious that both people have a say in the matter, irrespective of who is making the money. And so then we started evolving in our marriage, but I never had the skills to manage the money until I met good people like you. And I had this understanding because my husband was very financially aware and literate. And he invested in stocks when he was, 18? And he was, he didn't even start university. And he came up with this idea with his friends. And he told me about it once we got married that, I want to learn to build wealth. And he didn't say it in that way, but all his actions in general were tuned in to becoming a wealthier person. He didn't believe in brands. He didn't believe in the materialism and consumerism. And so I was like, okay, what are we up to and what are we doing? And it felt very confusing because of my brought up, but it felt very intuitively right to follow his lead. And then, of course, life has been happening. We've had kids and I've been growing. And then I don't have the concept of saving. And to me, it is that a certain amount of money has to go somewhere. And then once I started growing the business, I realized that's not how it is. And then, what you learn in high school or even in your primary school, that a penny saved is a penny earned, actually started to shine in front of my eyes. And I was like, oh my God, really? I can also start saving money. I don't have to not necessarily always keep earning more to make it more. And of course, I think a huge part of it has to also do with how you and I started to work together, and how we started building systems to understand how to actually make money work for you. I think that was a very new concept. But I don't think I've heard that, because we all get into the system of, you know, get 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 your degrees, get the best job, get promoted, move up the circle, pay your taxes, get your mortgages in order, all of that, and you're in the part of the system.
And I think I love that you mentioned in terms of, with your husband, because a lot of us really struggle to bring up money when it comes to our marriage. And so I love that, as you're mentioning from the very beginning, your husband brought you on board and said, "This is what I've been doing. This is when I started investing. This is what I invest in." I love that a lot of your financial goals, and you actually have a very good example of this, that even in your entrepreneurship journey, that I feel that you and your husband have really always come back to work as a team.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, when it comes to finances, when they get married, they feel very confused about their financial role. And they think that they can take a step back when it comes to finances and just let their husband take care of everything. But I feel like both of you have been so intentional about keeping each other on board and keeping sort of joint financial goals, which I think is amazing.
I like how you said it. Though, of course, as we talk about it, and I'm reflecting with you, I realize we've been open about communicating it, but we've had very different ways. And so we've allowed conflict in that area. And I don't
Mm,
think we've shied away from conflict. That's something I felt allowed us to get to where we are, where there is a part of, I don't like to deal with the banks in general. I've had this. He's dealt a lot with the bank, but he will never say, I will do it for you. And I'm like, man, why are you so unfair to me? Like, you're supposed to give me that protection. And he's like, no. And we made a whole sheet of passwords and transaction IDs and everything very early on, and kept it as a joint folder in Google, so that in case someone needs to access it, we are able to. And so this was something that came from him, but I think I pursued it very strongly, because I felt like, yes, I need to know. I don't have to not know ever. uh, his help has been great in the matter. And again, I think when you think of long term commitment in marriage, and you think of finances, I don't think it's ever going to be balanced. And I don't think it's always going to have the same energy. But as long as you have the same values and you're able to bring it to the table, no matter what the consequence of bringing it to the table is, you'll you'll bring something that'll allow you both to grow. And so there have been phases where I think he's been um, not that financially sensible. But
mm,
because we've been having these discussions, we can always bring it up in terms of, there was a time he'd say that I have worked so hard. I don't want to keep a track of what you're spending, because I know you and I trust you. And I said, wow, that is amazing. But I need to still keep a track of it so that I know. And not necessarily I had to share that with him, but I was doing that on the back end anyways, to just have an idea of, okay, how much are we spending and how much is going where it's going. Even if I'm not doing something majorly, that piece of information is always going to be helpful and guide your decisions. And I think bringing simplicity to finances is something that's so important. I think there's so much complication around taxes, around building your wealth, around budgeting, around anything. Like it's made so fancy and so out there that people who are busy, who are raising kids, who have multiple jobs, who are trying to do something more, it almost feels impossible that we'll ever have financial literacy or financial savviness to be able to crack the code of being wealthy. And when you can see the simplicity around it and go back to just the basics, how much are you making? How can you increase it? How much are you saving? How much are you spending? And how can you decrease it? And I think the whole last year of the genocide, and us seeing how finances impact, how, no more a Black Friday sale excites me. And I think that is life changing to know. Like, I mean, I have my carts full even now from Black Friday, but I didn't buy it just because I knew that I want to make a difference. And it's not that I don't need the stuff, but actually that's the thing, right, Yasmin? Whatever you can delay, there is some other way. If suppose it's meant to be yours, if you understand the concept of money from a faith-based perspective of how risk is and how you can actually understand it by not just getting stuck in the whole capitalism,
Yeah.
you start to feel the empowerment that, okay, this whole finances is a part of my life anyways. No matter at
Yeah.
what stage I am, in what phase I am, it is still something I'm making. They say indecision is also a decision. And so when you're not doing something in an area, that's also a decision you're making. And you're allowing yourself, ignorance is no more a bliss. It's actually something that'll keep you and make you a person who's going to regret a lot of things. So
Mm,
the movement that you've started with teaching women about financial literacy and getting everyone, all of us on board, I think what excites all of us is the fact that there's no more hiding. There's no more, oh, I didn't know that this exists. There's no more this, oh, I didn't know how to do it. Or it was too unaffordable for me or too time consuming for me, because everything that is becoming a barrier is something that you and I are willing to have that discussion and say, let's make it easy for our community, because it means something. It's something that we all have to work towards. Like, it's an obligation on us to do this. We can't anymore say, we can't figure this out. It needs to wait. I don't think it needs to wait anymore.
no, I completely agree. And especially even when it comes to things that used to be inaccessible, like investing, all of these things are so accessible to the average person.
Right.
There's no more excuse of we don't know and it's not accessible. And we have to accept that this is a part of our lives and it's our responsibility to make the effort to become good with money.
Yeah, and I mean, there's always been this debate about what all should kids learn in school. And now, because I've been such a huge mental health advocate, I'll always be like, mental health is so basic. And I always used to say this, and I think because we've seen our elders make this mistake a lot more about not talking about money. I would always tell my husband, I said, I want our kids to be able to talk about money. They say that kids grow up really fast if they figure out money. I said, good. Why not? Like, why do they have to be kids? And what that really means is that now they're becoming responsible. And I said, why is responsibility a bad thing? If a kid can learn this early on and save themselves the mistakes, and still they'll make the mistakes, it's not that they won't, but now
Yeah.
they'll know that that's a mistake as opposed to, oh, I didn't know at all. So I feel like even financial literacy today is becoming a thing that we are all leaning towards, but it needs to start at the grassroots level, literally primary, basic. When you learn math and you learn currency, you gotta learn finances, And I think that's what Islam also encourages. Something simple, like, the concept of Eid. You give it to your children because that's something that is something they look forward to. You look forward to. It's a tradition. And that can be made such a meaningful experience for the entire family, where you're giving money, you're exchanging money, teaching them the importance of it, and trusting that you and them can handle it, as opposed to, I don't know what are they going to do with it. And they get to 18 and they still don't know what to do with it, and you're still thinking about it. So I feel
It's very,
like it's not too complicated as long as you are not looking at the barriers and your fears. If you're looking at it from a simple place and saying, I want to make this easy and I want to take the first step in this direction. And that first step really is learning it yourself,
that's true.
investing the time as a woman, as a mother, to thinking this is one thing that I have to learn and not say this is not my department.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better. That once you acknowledge that this is something that I have to learn, this is no
Yeah.
longer an option, then you realize once you take that first step, it's not as intimidating as it feels before.
A business is not something that is as stable as a job. And so there is going to be an element of loss. And so then how do you do that risk management? All of these nitty gritty things come with motherhood and parenting, and also come with marriage. Like, I keep thinking to myself, there's always risk involved in life. How do we build a safety net so that when the risk shows up or something unexpected in life comes, how are we going to deal with it? And that is not just for finances, but I think that becomes a part of your personality once you start to see and recognize that Allah has placed a certain amount of risk in your life. That you call it a trial, you call it a test, you call it a blessing in disguise. No matter what it is, you're going to be tested. So this whole concept of just having a guarantee around, oh, my husband's going to be around taking care of my finances, or I don't have to do this part. I think when we can understand and shift our mindset around that and say, I'm responsible as a person, and Alhamdulillah, I have another resource who can add to it, you don't become a burden on someone also. You know, you don't become a liability that, oh, you know what, she doesn't know how to figure it out. So I have to do it. And I might be struggling in my own journey, but now I can't say it because she's just zero in it. And I feel like when we talk about finances, I'm like, yeah, husbands should also learn how to cook. Yes, you're going to fall ill at some point in time. They have to learn how to move themselves in that direction, because then you don't have to get up and immediately start cooking because the whole world in your house is going to be hungry, or they don't know how to fend for themselves. I think we have to understand that whether it's in marriages, whether it's in partnerships, even in businesses, I think I see this a lot as well, that a lot of women in businesses don't like to deal with the finances part, and it's usually the men dealing with it. It's usually the men talking about money, and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
What? And I've learned that maybe we lack the language. Like men lack a certain amount of language in showing love in certain cultures, or in most cultures. Women lack the language in finances. And so when we lack the language, the first step is learn the language, you know? And I think it is more to do with just, oh, I have never done it. Oh, my mother's never done it. Oh, my mother's never been to the gym. Great. Just step into the gym and see what happens. It's not going to like engulf you. And even if it does, there will be support. Like I would see that for myself. And I say it with all the love. I would think that every time I go to the bank, they're going to like put me in jail or something. I'm like, I don't know why I have that fear. I could never make sense of it. And Yasmin, I've had to spend time at the bank especially when I moved to Canada. I was like, 38 weeks pregnant at the bank sitting, and I'm like, I'm trying to open an account, and they're like, can we help you? I was like, dare, don't come close to me. And I'm like, why am I feeling this way? They're humans in the bank, but I had to do it. And like, there was a friend who was a she's like, you seem to be so confident, but at the bank you're like such a chicken. I'm like, I don't know, like, because I think I don't know the terms. I don't know what credit and debit is. And then I was like, you know what? I learn at the bank. And I asked them, I said, I'm just tired of having this, that I can't have a conversation with you. And they're like, no, let us explain it to you. And I said, great, please explain it, you know? And it doesn't land the first way. It doesn't. You need to have multiple discussions. You need to talk to different people. You need to talk at the bank. You need to talk outside the bank also. And then when people look at you and, they might think that you really don't know. I think there's a lot of shame associated with it, that you don't know. But I think the problem is, do we really want to know? If we really want to know, that shame will not stand as a barrier. Every successful business that is run has a social impact. Everyone has to have a certain amount go to charity. Like, if you understand Islamic financing by the basics of it, there is only goodness for everyone. The poor don't remain the poor, the rich don't remain rich. There comes a balance for everyone, because that's why you have ongoing sadaqah, you have zakat, you have no taking of interest. There's so much already placed in the system, and we're like, no, we don't have it. We don't have this. We're constantly looking at what we don't have. But what Allah has given us is really enough for us to start building the systems in the basics of a home, in the basics of a mind of a woman. Like, she can be a treasurer of her own home if she can realize the value she can add to financial understanding of the whole home. But we shy away from it, and I applaud you for the work you've been doing in this area. I think it's so important to be unapologetic about this. I think it's time. Um, it's time that we own the truths in the matter of financial literacy and financial understanding and growing ourselves in this area. Because if we look back and say we didn't know, we are the only ones to blame today.
Yeah, it's very true. And I think that a lot of people have this misconception that money and wealth is a very secular concept and that these are not people of faith,
Yeah. Oh my God.
that our religion and our money is something that is separate. When in fact, as you mentioned, as Muslims, when we're growing our wealth, there's actually good for everybody. There's
Yeah.
good for us, there's good for our families, there's good for our community. And on top of it, we're contributing more, we're giving more sadaqah, we're giving more zakat. And so even the poor are also being lifted.
Exactly. And I think, see, there's a huge part of the community that doesn't have access to these resources. So what you're doing is you're becoming a liability on the entire community by not showing up in the best way. And whenever anyone brings this up about, Islam and money and everything, I'm like, you know what? Know your facts. Like really. Like the Ashra Mubasharat. The 10 people who were guaranteed Jannah, in them, two of them were the world's richest. Abdur Rahman ibn Auf and Usman ibn Affan. They were so wealthy and they made such strong contributions. The first woman of Islam, Khadija radiallahu anha, was a businesswoman. And we all use that as, oh, we need to do business. She supported the movement of dawah so strongly because of having that financial understanding. It was imbalanced in terms of how much money she was making. She actually employed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when we feel shy and scared that, oh, we shouldn't be making more money than my husband because that'll, hurt my husband's ego. Now, Zubillah, we're thinking wrong firstly. I don't think making a lot of money, having a lot of wealth has to do anything with how you show up to your husband or how you show up to anybody for that matter. Because I think there's this negative attribute associated with rich people. They're very arrogant. They're not helpful. They've gotten it easy. I don't think anyone's gotten it easy. I think they've only learned the system. They've learned to not allow influences that won't help them grow their money. And I think that requires being a strong person. And you cannot make the image of a woman or a man who's made money with halal means seem wrong just because it fits your convenience. I think it's more important to acknowledge that Allah placed all examples for us in the Sahabas and said, like Aisha Razallahu anha, she was the most knowledgeable, but she didn't have children. Abdurrahman ibn Auf was so wealthy. Everyone has a certain strength in the community. Everyone doesn't have to have it all. This is not Jannah. We'll have it all in Jannah. But we've been given certain strengths and certain weaknesses so that we thrive as a community. That I'm weak at something. Yasmin, please help me. Yasmin may be good at something. So Yasmin's willing to help another person come up in that area. And Yasmin might need help at some point in time. That's an exchange of energy in a community. It's not like, oh, now she needs help. She is wealthy, so why does she need help? No, we don't question it like that. We come with humility that Allah has given us the strength to help someone who may to us seem really powerful, but is just another human being and is willing to support the community. I think what's really important is everyone today who's willing to go beyond themselves and their fears and look at their lives and say, how can I make this life better? I think the whole Bon Jovi concept of this is one life and live it to the best. I think when
Mm.
we Muslims see it from a place of wisdom, this is the life to make it best. Because there is a dua which says, Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanatan wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina adhaban. Seek the best in this world with the intention of the better akhirah. I think what the problem is when we get money, when we get resources, when we get something that we've been seeking or that has been considered significantly a successful life, we lose track of how this is not just for the moment, but to build something for the future. I think that becomes a problem because the moment people start making money, then they're spending it like that. They're spending it in a way that doesn't serve them. It serves other people. I will always be amazed as to how people sit and watch TV. And I'm like, dude, you're paying somebody else for your time, you know? And I'm not judging anyone who watches it. I know there are enough people who watch. I would say make it work for you. What's something that'll add value? You can get into entertainment, but entertainment that takes you away from your reality is not entertainment. It's a distraction. And so, if you take any concept and apply it, you can apply it to finance. And I think the work that you're doing of helping all of us grow in financial literacy is now we'll see the mistakes as mistakes. We won't think, oh, this is the way of life or this is how it had to be done. We have to reorient what a mistake is when it comes to finances and what is a worthy investment.
Insiya, thank you so much for your time, all of your wisdom, and all of your stories. I could listen to you go on forever.
I love talking to you. You inspire a lot of goodness, and a lot of us, including me, I've been touched by you in the most beautiful ways. And I really, really find a lot of value in what you do.
Thank you so much.
You too. Have a good day.